when you're looking at the executive function challenges that everyone with ADHD has at some level, impulse control, emotional control, flexible thinking, working memory, self-monitoring, planning and prioritization, task initiation, and organization. When those things aren't strong, you don't have tools for when those struggles come up, your overwhelm is going to be triggered. Hello, truth tellers, and welcome back to the ADHD Scapegoat podcast, where we talk about everything ADHD and scapegoating. I'm Angie.
And I'm Jeremy. Today we're going to focus on ADHD overwhelm and how it intersects with being the family scapegoat.
Yes, so feeling like your to-do list is like a mountain high while also navigating whether it's lack of support around your ADHD or like with mine, I was undiagnosed until I was 28. So like I always had to do the things, and you know, there's responsibilities as you get older, and obviously it gets more and more so when you get married. You have more responsibilities. When you have kids, you have more responsibilities. Your to-do list is always kind of growing, and it's more about managing it. But without having a diagnosis or without having that family support, it feels like you're just grasping at straws. And yes, you may tackle, you know, one of the things on that big pile, and you also might just look at the pile and collapse. So when you're seeing all these things adding up in your to-do list, or, you know, maybe just outside pressures, maybe you don't even have a list. Because again, a lot of times lists for some ADHDers makes them repel immediately, and some are like me, gravitate towards a list and have too many lists. So
She loves a list.
But you start to doubt yourself and your abilities when you constantly feel like you're playing catch up. So you want to first talk about understanding what that ADHD overwhelm actually is, because I know everyone has a certain level of overwhelm, certain, you know, high stress times in your life where maybe you're taking on more than other times. So, but just remember that ADHD brains don't struggle with a deficit of attention. The issue is being able to pay attention when we want to focus on what we want to. So the difficulty in prioritizing tasks and managing time, that lack of a filter, I mean, add in also our filter is nonstop thing, incoming messages, and then our own creative thoughts all happening all day. But that lack of a filter doesn't help us prioritize the important things versus the things that might be small details that really don't matter. And a lot of times that also makes it so we don't even know where to begin a task. We might know that task needs to be done, but where do we begin, and how long will it actually take, and what steps are actually involved to complete it, which again, you doubt yourself. How am I even going to start this? Why am I doing this? And you can shut down. Have you ever experienced any of that at different times? I mean, obviously it's not a daily thing for you, but I'm sure there's parts of that resonate.
Yeah, especially being a dad of two ADHDers and a partner, or having a partner with ADHD. I think that I feel your overwhelm, and I feel the boys' overwhelm.
Right.
Daily.
Right.
I'm learning how to be more patient with it, level set expectations. I love making lists now because the second I feel overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, I need to prioritize this, and the only way I'm going to do it is visually, so I'm just going to make the list. You have all of these printouts for like daily planners, weekly planners.
You know.
And it's like we launched this podcast using one of your planner sheets, right?
Right.
I talked to you about it. We made the plan of, okay, in order to do it, we need this equipment. We need these ideas. We need these are the platforms we're going to use, and got the whole process down and worked out. And it became once it was written out, it became a very manageable task.
Right. And I think the thing is a lot of times when you're in that state of overwhelm, even making the list feels like one step too far. Like, I can't even take that step to make the list. And you're frozen in, as soon as I make the list, now I'm going to have to take action, kind of a thing. And if it already feels overwhelming and your energy is really zapped from, maybe you've been overwhelmed for days, weeks, making that list will help you. But sometimes it just feels like one step too many in that moment. So you have, like, that's something we'll talk about more, but you have to know from practice that making that list will help you. So even when I don't want to do anything else, I need to make a list. I need to brain dump everything that's overwhelming me and start from there.
I know that you do daily lists of just your top 3 priorities, knowing very well that you may not get to number 3 or maybe even number 2, but as long as you have those priorities, if you get number 1 done, which is the most important, then I can move on to number 2. When you have that bigger project, I'm the type of person that when I make the list, so when I did the plan for the podcast, once I make the list, I'm like, okay, I want to start right now. Do you do that? Or is it like, oh my God, it took all of my energy to make this a list. That's enough for today?
Both.
Okay.
I think it just depends on the situation. But yeah, I think a lot of times you make the list, and with our interest-based nervous system, if we're really excited about the things on the to-do list, oh yeah, jump right in, let's do this. I'm going to like bang all of this out right now. But then there's other times where your list includes things like, you know, calling the insurance company or taxes or, you know, and those are just for me, things that I loathe that take a lot of patience. So there are things that I definitely try to not do all of those very taxing, boring things at once. Maybe if I'm making my list of 3, I'll make 2 things that I need to do that I enjoy doing, and then 1 that I don't. And usually I'll try to do the one that I don't like doing first.
Do you ever set yourself up so that you know that you make your number 1 priority an easier task so that you can accomplish it, or you can accomplish it, and then you kind of check that off and get that dopamine hit of like, all right, I got number 1 done. Let's go on. Like, to build momentum. Do you?
Yeah, and there are a bunch of different tricks and tips depending on how your brain works and what works for you. So just trying different things, like there's ways to take, when you brain dump, and you just take things, okay, this will take me 5 minutes. Go through and find all the tasks that'll take you 5 minutes, you think, or just like the really quick tasks that have like 1 step that basically are just cluttering your brain. So if you're not doing them, they're still back here, like I still have to do that. But if I just check it off and get it done, then that'll be done, and that'll get your motor going, kind of. And then there's like 15-minute tasks, 30-minute tasks, things like that. But a lot of times when it comes down to it, our ADHD brains, it's deadlines. Like, it's a last minute, this is when it has to be done. I'm going to get 8 hours of work done in 1 hour. And yeah, I'm going to be exhausted, but I did it. And it's not sustainable. It's just exhausting, and it adds to your overwhelm. So And so if we jump back into like some of the common triggers of overwhelm, especially with ADHDers, it's the executive dysfunction. So when you're looking at the executive function challenges that everyone with ADHD has at some level, and some more issues in one of the executive functions than the other, but impulse control, emotional control, flexible thinking, working memory, self-monitoring, planning and prioritization, task initiation, and organization. So if you're like, when those things aren't strong, you don't have tools for when those struggles come up, your overwhelm is going to be triggered. So also sensory overload, which we've talked about before, being a highly sensitive person, talked about one of like a second episode maybe, but like noise, lights, visual clutter. Like I said, when you're on a to-do list and you find something that might take 5 minutes, like sometimes I have like little piles of things, like maybe this pile's for one kid and this pile's for the other kid, or this pile needs to go down to the basement, this, and it's just kind of sitting here because just as I work my way through the house, I'll do those things. But if there's multiple things just sitting there, that's visual clutter, and I'm sitting there going, I have to do that. I just want to get it out of my line of sight so I can focus. But then also noise. If there's constant noise, and that's why I use the brown noise to kind of block out even, when there necessarily isn't an overwhelming amount of noise. It's just a focused choice of mine to put that on so that I'm able to not be overloaded by a drip outside the window or something, but that will overload our brains, like all the different sensory, noises. Like if you're wearing a shirt that's like the tag is bothering you, or, it doesn't fit totally right, or, like I wore those jeans the other day and the pockets were like really tiny, and I was like, why am I wearing these? Like these pockets are annoying, and I can't, I don't know. So I changed them, because why?
You don't need tiny pocket jeans in your life.
No, nobody does.
It's a good decision.
And then there's decision paralysis. So we tend to overthink as ADHDers because we cannot turn our thoughts off. It doesn't have a pause button, this filter in our brain. It literally just like, go, 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 all the thoughts. So even small decisions sometimes can become overwhelming. And like I said, just making a list can feel like one more thing, And then the other trigger is emotional impact. So if you carry guilt, frustration, shame, they add to overwhelm by just holding those feelings and not working through them. So if you're feeling frustrated, you overschedule yourself, or you don't take enough downtime after a really tough day, a really tough couple of days. Like that's definitely something I had to learn. I just always was go, 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 and didn't really understand the emotional impact of that overwhelm, and didn't really allow myself any downtime or recovery time or whatever, so that I just kept getting in this cycle of like going and being exhausted and feeling emotionally out of control, and then nope, just keep going, and it sets you up for failure. So, but you also, if you're having a lot of overwhelming emotions, then those action items and your tasks and to-do lists start to pile up. So again, then that feeds the emotional cycle of, oh my gosh, I'm not meeting my deadline. I'm not going to even hit one thing on my list today. And that itself can turn into guilt or shame or thinking we're a failure. And that's where the added layer of not just having ADHD, but being the family scapegoat comes in. So adding the weight of ADHD overwhelm and the way that your brain is unable to filter without tools and support. When you're the family scapegoat in this toxic family dynamic, that role places you being unfairly blamed for problems in the family. So you're carrying that weight. And that amplifies your self-doubt. So when you're in those times where you're, maybe you're trying to brain dump or decide what you're going to do or what you can do. Because a lot of times when you're brain dumping, there's like, okay, these things I have to do. There's these appointments. There's these things I want to do. There's, household thing, all these different things. There's certain items on your list where if you carry self-doubt and anxiety about them, you're going to, sometimes without even thinking, push those ones kind of to the side. And if the self-doubt from carrying this burden of blame and being treated like you're worthless, you're not going to jump to the creative things that fuel you, that relieve your overwhelm. Or you're not going to take rest time because you're not good enough. So you avoid asking for help as well as the scapegoat because you will be made to feel like you're a burden for asking for any help or support. And you grow, and kids adapt and learn so quickly who they can count on, who they can rely on. And when you're treated like you're a burden or you're a problem, you learn to have a survival-based mentality. And like, I don't want to ask anybody for help because then I'm going to either owe them something or they're going to tell me what to do, and then they're going to think they can tell me what to do all the time. And I don't want the attachment to this. I also don't want to reach out for help because they're going to belittle me and make fun of me for even needing help, even if it's something that's age appropriate that I don't know how to do, right? So then you take ADHD with this and the ADHD traits with scapegoating when you are forgetful or impulsive or you're sensitive. Those things are misinterpreted as laziness, carelessness, and they reframe it as emotional instability instead of, I'm having a reaction to being treated poorly, right? And then you're feeling dismissed and unheard when you're overwhelmed. And then on top of that, you need to defend yourself and over-explain why you're asking for support or why you need help or even expressing any way of, hey, I'm going to do this today because I'm going to clean out my closet today because we're going to rearrange, our room tomorrow or anything. Like, you can't even get to that point because they're just going to be ridicule. Hey, I can't reach this thing. I remember being a kid, I reorganized my room and cleaned my room all the time because I've said it before. I developed OCD as a coping mechanism for not having ADHD support and being in this toxic family dynamic as the scapegoat. So it allowed me some control, and I would clean and rearrange and organize, and I couldn't go and ask for help if I needed to reach something. So I would just go get a ladder. I would go get a stool. I learned how to hammer and nail and, do all these things on my own because no one was going to help me. And I didn't want any of their help because it was always tied to some form of bullying.
Right. So as an undiagnosed ADHD or as a child, anytime you would ask for help when you were struggling, so number one, you probably didn't know how to express exactly what you were struggling with.
Right.
But then when you did try to express that, it was always met with shaming
whining.
or ridicule. Yeah, you're Angie Whiner.
Yeah.
Because you're asking for help, because you don't understand. You understand that you're struggling with something, and however that's expressed, but you don't really know how to ask for that help. That's you basically crying out for help. Like, even if it's just, I can't reach this thing. Well, why are you,
Why
that's
are you
probably
even
not,
doing that?
Why are you you just rearranged your room last week. Why are you doing
matter,
that? Because
right?
at that time, you don't know how to say, well, this is the only thing that gives me comfort in this environment, is
Yes,
having,
absolutely.
I don't have control of my own brain. I have control over this space in my house, and this brings me comfort. Can you please just help me reach this thing?
Yeah, no. Why are you even doing that? I don't have time for this. And that's the thing, like, so I'm asking questions to understand. Like, if I actually did know what I needed to ask, questions to understand something, I was a nuisance. I was annoying. So it was always met with like, and I still did it, but not all the time. Like, I wasn't stupid. But sometimes some days I had more fight in me and some days I didn't.
Right. I recognize that kind of desire for control, or maybe just recognize the struggle in our boys when it's, I'm working on a project or something, or you and I are trying to get ready for the day, and one of them is like, hey, can you come help me do this thing? Because I'm taking all of my Lego from the second shelf and I'm putting it on the third shelf, but I need help getting the stuff off the third. And it's like, why are you doing that right now? You have to brush your teeth in 5 minutes, but it's
Right.
like, yeah, but I need to do this thing. I've learned to have a little more patience with that, because I understand, they must be struggling with something that they're not ready to talk about yet. And this is giving them that peace of mind, knowing, well, I can go do this thing right now.
And I think a lot of times, especially at their age, like, they get really excited when they come up with a new idea, and like, obviously not wanting to squash their excitement, they don't, and we'll talk more about like the time blindness and the time management in a couple episodes, but not understanding how much time, especially when you're using the example of getting ready for school. We've talked to them, gosh, I don't even know how long, since Wyatt was little. Like, so Otis was just, what do you say? He was just grew into this. We already had these systems set up, saying we need to do what we have to do before we do the things we want to do. And so reminding them of that. But at the same time, like, just this morning, Otis was like, hey, Mom, can you film me doing this video? And I was carrying 4 different things, and I was trying to get ready. My hair was still wet. Like, it was just, I was in transition, getting ready, and again, had my hands full. Can you help me film this video? I can't do it on my own. And I was like, I'm trying to get ready right now. My hands are full. Hang on 1 second. And I said, how about, we still have to get ready for school. How about you make a list of all the videos you want to make this weekend so you don't forget them. And then if we still have time before school to do that video, we can do it. So it's just like pausing, not disregarding his excitement about whatever this creative video he wants to create is, but also setting him up for, oh yeah, I have to get ready for school. I have to get dressed. I have to brush my teeth. I have to make sure I have all of these things done first so that I don't get frustrated or get behind and then I'm stressed and everything, spirals out of control. So, some of the impact of being the family scapegoat as well for your mental health is you're struggling with that chronic self-blame, that critical inner voice that reflects what other people are saying to you and what, like, I remember a lot of times feeling like I I was already playing scenarios in my head, like, when I ask this, this is how they're going to respond to me. Just trying to prepare myself, and also sitting by myself in my room, reorganizing and going, oh my gosh, you're so annoying. Why would you go and ask them for help? You deserved them yelling at you. Like, of course there were times that I internalized that. It didn't stay with me for very long. Like, especially when you're overwhelmed and you're tired and you start to get emotional, those negative messages and those harmful narratives really beat you down and exhaust you. So you have a really hard time trusting yourself to make the right decision in certain instances. So you could be like, I could go and over explain the reason why I'm reorganizing my room again, but I would have to explain it in a way that they would think it's valid. Like, not just like, because my needing to do that, to feel calm and to regulate my nervous system the only way I knew how, wasn't enough. I had to have like a defensive argument for why my feelings were valid, because my feelings were non-existent. So it's really hard to like be overwhelmed, not have any support, and then on top of it have to like defend something that you're not even doing wrong to feel worthy. So we want to go into some coping strategies for the ADHD overwhelm as well as the scapegoating dynamic together. So some ADHD specific strategies we've touched on, but breaking your tasks into smaller steps. And how Jeremy said, I use categories and then I break them down into my top 3. So I'll brain dump everything and then I separate them into like, important appointments, home, family, creative, work, all the different categories. And then I will break them down into 3 things, the top 3 for the day. So again, it's usually based on deadline first. Like, I know, like that's pretty much, again, this is still a work in progress, and I do this, I coach this, I know what to do, but it's still like, I still have to do the things myself. But setting the realistic expectations and practicing self-compassion is something I work really hard at, because I've gotten really good at realistic expectations. I feel like that happened before Wyatt was born, like when we were living together and stuff. It would be like setting realistic expectations and, like overestimating how long something might take. So I wouldn't be like, hey, I'll be ready in 5 minutes. I was not ready in 5 minutes.
She was not ready in 5 minutes. Spoiler alert.
And again, like time blindness, I'm not really sure how long it will take me. So I'm going to overestimate. And then I even would do, like, I figured out it takes me 7 minutes to curl my hair. I timed it multiple times, because if I spend any more than 7 minutes, it ends up looking too done. And if I spend any less than that, it's not done. So it's 7 minutes. And so I know now, if I have 10 minutes, I can do it right now. But that's it. There's different things that sometimes you do have to go back and time yourself and go, yeah, I really don't know how long this is going to take me. So
for the record, I don't care how long it takes you to get ready.
No, I know.
You always look like a fox. So,
but I think it's saying 5 minutes and then having you sitting there 30 minutes later. It's frustrating. It's frustrating all around. But then you want to kind of give yourself a cushion if you don't know, right? So, and then almost like cheering for yourself when you get it done in less time, but then you're not cramming it too into this time and like coming out with something that you're frustrated with. So, I can also get into that feeling of being behind on something and then go, okay, pause. I'm behind. I was supposed to do this thing yesterday. I didn't get it. Let's reevaluate. Can that thing still be third on my list? Will I do my top 2 things for today? Or does that thing from yesterday need to come first? And just kind of pausing, and because it will happen. You'll all of a sudden, like, we talk about it. Some days I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so productive. I feel like I'm not distracted. There's like, everything's kind of clicking and flowing. And then other days I'm just like, interruption. Or, or like some days when it was like so cold and I couldn't warm up, I couldn't focus. So there's different things that will come up, and not saying, oh my gosh, I was so productive yesterday and today, why can't I do that again today? I'm such a piece of crap. Like, any of that, just pausing and going, okay, I didn't get that. Let's reevaluate, where am I at today? So that now you can move the thing that you didn't do. Or sometimes when you're making your list, this is the funny thing, especially with our ADHD brains, we think it's really important that day. And maybe it's because we really want to do it. But then when you don't get to it, and there's a couple days that go by and you have you keep pushing it, you're like, you know what, that's going to go on the master list, that who knows if I'll ever find that again. I mean, I know where my master list is, but how often I look at it is laughable. So, but you know what I mean? Like, you'll think, oh yes, this was number 3 on my must-do list last week. And now I'm like, do I really have to do that? Like, you actually are able to, as time goes on, it helps you reevaluate those priorities as well.
I have a follow-up.
Yeah?
I've never seen the master list.
Oh, Lord.
Would I be scared of the master list?
Probably.
Okay. You keep looking over in this area,
so
I don't hint, because I don't think I want to see it. I don't.
It's in the drawer that's by your legs.
We've got some work to do before I see the master list. I don't know that it's a good idea to just pull that out right now.
Like Monica's secret
I just
closet.
I'm sorry. I'm learning that the master list exists. I didn't know. Like, I've seen a lot of the lists.
And you get your list sometimes.
I get my list. But I love the days when you're like, oh my God, I got so much done. Look, I checked all of this stuff off my list, and you're so revved up. But not because you needed to get those things done. I just like to see that excitement from you. And I know that there are going to be days where it's basically a crash day, right? Like,
right.
I did all these things, I expended all of this energy and all of that excitement, and then the next day might be, I didn't get anything done. I know there's that down, and
Well, and that happens too when you're really excited, you're getting all these things done. You don't know, your ADHD brain does not know when you're going to get that energy again, because you know that just from your experience, without even saying it out loud or really maybe consciously going, this is what could happen, my energy isn't always going to be this high. It's like, okay, expecting it to fall and not completely crashing on yourself. But in those times where you're like, yeah, I'm getting all this stuff done, and not pausing to eat, which I'm so bad. Like, I don't like preparing food. Like, cooking, and I don't know if we've talked about this before. Because it stresses me out.
Yeah,
and it feels annoying to have to take time to do those things.
Right.
And it's silly. Like, I know I need that stuff, but like, it's also, I don't ever plan in time for that, and that's something I'm continually working on. But when you get into that space where you can't turn off, and you don't give yourself, okay, I know I'm really productive today, but I need to stop working like at dinner time. Like, especially when I'm crashing anyway, just from being the end of the day. Like, still going because I'm excited of how much I'm getting done, and I get excited to do the next thing. I also need to remind myself to pause.
It's hard to, I mean, even as a non-ADHDer, it's really hard to turn that off when you have momentum,
Right.
and it's like, oh, I probably could get one more thing done. And you push, and then you look at the clock, and it's been 2 hours, and
Right.
now it's for me, like, you don't like to cook, which is fine. I love to cook, and I like to make you meals, and I will.
We're perfect for each other.
Right, yeah. And so, for me, when I push, it's like, oh, now it's 6 o'clock and I haven't started dinner, and we normally are eating by now. That's where it gets. So I understand, that momentum building, and it's hard to shut that off. But I also, back to what I was saying earlier, was I recognize those high points and the low points. And when you get that momentum and when you do it, I love to see your sense of accomplishment. So I also, when there are days when I know I can see, okay, you're frustrated, or you're really trying to concentrate and you can't, or you're cold, I try to just remind you, yeah, but look at, like, you got all of that stuff done yesterday. You did all of that stuff, or you've got this thing coming up on Monday, and like that, those are good things. Like, that's momentum too. It's not immediate satisfaction or accomplishment, but you did it. You did a great job. And just because you're having this day doesn't cancel out the great day you had yesterday, or the good day that you're going to have next week.
Right. And I think that's another part. So adding in some coping strategies and some of these practices of reminding yourself, or having a supportive person remind you that, hey, you did all of these things. Like, you need to slow down, or, hey, you need to eat. I'm making, like, you're always like, I'm making a sandwich. Do you want a sandwich? Like, just, yep. Like, doing those things. Or, hey, when you're making the boys milkshakes, do you want a milkshake? It's always yes.
I don't even ask anymore. I know you want a milkshake.
But if you're establishing these things and working them into balancing, because it is hard. It's always hard to balance anything. There's always so many things coming at us, but you have to establish firm boundaries to protect your energy, especially if you're around abusive people or you're dealing with those situations. And we're going to talk about boundaries in 2 weeks, so I won't go into that too much. But knowing your limits and knowing what allows to keep you in a place where you're not dysregulated, whether it's dysregulated in a high way or dysregulated in a low, like completely frozen way. And just recognizing when that comes up and saying, okay, I'm feeling dysregulated. I feel like, or you know what, I feel like I've maxed out my energy today. I just need to take a pause. I need to, shift, move my body in this direction. Also, when it comes to family scapegoating, some coping and healing tools, recognizing and rejecting those toxic narratives. So when you know that you've done nothing wrong, but certain people keep pointing the finger at you, you need to be able to tap into your intuition. Like, don't let them tell you that what you're feeling is wrong, or don't let them tell you who you are. Know who you are. And if you aren't able to recognize what's going on, it's very easy to get overloaded with all the attacks coming at you. It's very easy to fall down into this place of they're telling you who you are, so it's hopeless, right? And building a support system outside of those family dynamics, like, talk about it with safe people, like having people in your life. Like, we've had so many conversations about like even when we were still dating and you would say nice things to me and I would be like, save it for the proposal. I said those things because I was like, why are you being so nice to me? Like, you're not going to have any nice things. Like you can't just say nice things to people every day. Like, literally, I used to think that.
And you can't just expect that everyone's going to propose to you because they say nice things to you.
But seriously, like, for me to say that to you, I think it was it jarring for you? Like, you were like, what?
No.
Like, what? It's
not jarring.
Is it, when I used to say that, I shouldn't say when I am, I used to say that to you and you'd say nice things to me. You're like, why can't you accept, like, I love you. I think you're wonderful. Like, I was like,
I understand it now. Then I was probably more pushy about it. Like, just take the compliment, or
right.
Or
like, no.
I probably just did it more. Like, I
right.
probably poured it on even heavier because, which to you was probably overbearing.
Well, no, because this is the whole thing in toxic dynamics or with abusive people. They're not abusive all of the time. They'll be nice every once in a while. So if it's like 90% of the time they're mean, but 10% of the time they're nice, it's usually because they need something from you. So it's like, it's a very hard thing to trust when someone's being nice, because anytime someone in your family has been nice to you, it's been used against you later. Or held like, I was nice to you, so you need to accept the way I'm treating you right now, or something like that. Like, so I think there's part of that too, where it was like, is he being real or is he being fake? And that's being told that nobody likes you. You think those people are your friends? And me and Val talked about it on our show too. Like, you think those people are your friends? And so making you not trust people. And so it was like, does he really love me? Because, like, it sounds like he does, but, like, I don't know. Like, why is he being so nice? Does he really mean it, or does he want something? Like, that, I
just wanted to be around you because you're a cool person.
Right, and that I did too.
Right.
And that's why it was like, okay, can I trust this? It's hard. So
how many years of that did it take to trust me?
No, I trust you. I trusted you when we were just friends.
Sure.
But I think building that support system, and actually believing the people that see who you know that you are, it isn't going to be comfortable in the beginning. Because you're not used to being treated with kindness. But talk to friends, talk to your therapist, talk to your coach, like anyone who's safe that you can work through those things with, or talk about them, or even say them out loud so that you can repeat them to yourself, so you're not internalizing this negative message that these awful people are trying to project onto you. And having the mindset shift of understanding that overwhelm is not a personal failing, but it's a natural challenge that comes with having ADHD and not being able to filter your thoughts. And then having these complex family dynamics on top of it, like, of course that's going to happen. But now what am I going to do with it? So being able to shift from just reacting to these things and saying, okay, I recognize this sign. I recognize I'm responding in a dysregulated way that makes me feel worse. How am I going to shift how I respond? Because I'm not in charge and I'm not in control of how anyone else acts, but I'm in charge of how I allow that by setting my own boundaries. And knowing that when you're able to communicate with your partner or a coworker or a friend, that you are supporting yourself by advocating for your needs, and knowing that someone can be like, we talked about this before, where we're like, hey, I'm struggling today. And just saying it so that we're like, okay, what do we need? What do we need to do? because we're all going to have days like that, or we're all going to say, you know, I just need a minute. Can I just go upstairs and lay down for a minute? Or can I just go for a walk or whatever? Just advocating for your needs and communicating something when it's bothering you, and not just like holding it in, building resentment, expecting that person to know, or even people pleasing because you want that person to like you, but on the other end, the person who's wanting to know what you're feeling and wanting to know what you need, or wanting to know what's wrong, why are you acting like this? Are you mad at me? When you aren't sharing that, or you're not communicating what's bothering you, and you're just holding something against them, that will overwhelm you, and that will make you feel like you're out of control. So wanting to communicate it's helpful for both people in the relationship, and it keeps you from being overwhelmed. It helps grow your connection as well. So I just want to recap going over the ADHD overwhelm and its intersecting with scapegoating and some of these coping strategies. Just a reminder that you're not alone in these struggles, and your worth is not tied to how others perceive you or by how much you get done in a day. So I want to ask you as listeners to reflect on how your family dynamics impact your ADHD experience, or if you don't have ADHD, just how that is either impacting your ability to remove overwhelm, or if it's adding to your overwhelm, and what things that maybe you could start to implement to relieve that. And I encourage you guys to continue to reach out and share your stories and your things that you're working on, or things that that you love about the podcast. It's been amazing, and it's so surprising, and I'm always like, again, somebody's saying something nice to me. This is crazy. But I really, it's so awesome. Like, the reason we're doing this is to bring people together and to connect and to show support for people who are going through these similar struggles, whether it be with their toxic family or with their ADHD struggles personally. And I think, being able to connect and have people not just listen or watch our podcast, but also share with us and cheer us on. And it's amazing. So thank you for those of you who have already sent those messages. And I encourage you always, comment publicly, message privately, but keep doing that. It keeps us going. And then next week, we're going to discuss the inconvenient heart, which is about ADHD and our emotions. So until next time.